So you've come back for some more Android development fun. So what we've done previously is we've done some practice with buttons. So we made kind of a hello button app last time in the last video. And today what we're going to be playing with is we're just going to be expanding upon that. We're going to be still doing things with like buttons and text views, but we're going to get a little bit more complex. Take that next step of getting more comfortable with Android development. Nothing too strenuous, but we know that whenever something's new to you, you kind of want a couple little examples to get going. So that's what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a Tic-Tac-Toe app. What it's going to look like here, I'm showing it on a 1.5 Android 1.5 emulator. It's going to be a pretty simple little game. You're going to click on the buttons to make the X's and the O's show up. If you'd like to click on a new game, you can click on New Game, and it'll clear them off. But it's just going to be buttons with strings on them. But it's going to be a little game that you can play instead of just being a counter, which is what we did last time. The design pattern we're going to use for this is going to be the Model View Controller, the MVC design pattern. The idea with an MVC design pattern, this image I stole from some Apple documentation, is that you have your model object, which kind of like keeps the state of the game. So it's going to keep like what are the X's, what are the O's, whose turn is it, did somebody win. So it's going to keep like the information, the backing is going to be in the model. And then we've got the controller, which communicates between the two. When a user presses the button, the controller tells the model, and then you can get information from the model into the controller, and then the controller will use that to update the view. The division is pretty clear. The model object I'm actually going to provide for you today. It's just a basic Java class. It's something you could write that's not even Android specific. It's just a Java backing model. The view is going to all be done in XML. So we're going to create an XML file, main.xml again, to create and set up the view. And then the controller is the code you're going to write that listens for buttons, tells the model that something's changed, and then it's going to update the images on the buttons and the images on the text. So we're going to go through the XML for the view, try to get this to lay out the way we want it, and then we're going to go through the code for the listening and talking to the model. But the model object is something that we're just giving you today. So let's go ahead and download that. You can click on the link from the slides, or if you go to the calendar page, there's the Tic-Tac-Toe given files. If you download this, obviously I've downloaded it before, but there's no harm in downloading it again. It's like I've downloaded it a couple times. You can show where it's at in the Finder. And so there's two things in here. One is just a little icon, which is optional, and then the other is this model object. So I'll just kind of set that off to the side, and I'll need that here in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and create a new project. Here I didn't bother with making them different names. I just called them all Tic-Tac-Toe. In the slide here, I went ahead and made the build target 1.5, which is what I typically use. Because today was the day I downloaded the gingerbread, which was 2.3. I'm going to use 2.3, which is not what the slide says, but it's what I'm going to do. So we're going to start up a new project. So you can say new Android project. If this doesn't show up here, you can always just hit project and then select Android project in the next one. So the project name is just going to be Tic-Tac-Toe. I've already got one called Tic-Tac-Toe because I did it in class, so I'm going to call this one video. Choose the build target. Usually I would just pick the 1.5 because that's all we need. That's a device I'm using has 1.5. But today, in honor of just downloading gingerbread, I'll use 2.3. We don't need to. Any of them would work, right? The application name, I'll just call it Tic-Tac-Toe. The package, I'll just do the standard Rose-Hulman reverse DNS, Tic-Tac-Toe. The activity that I'm going to create, there's only going to be one activity in this app, so I'm just going to call it Tic-Tac-Toe as well. And then the minimal SDK version, this could be much lower, but I'm just going to say 9, and I'll just make it use the newest emulator. Obviously, could have chosen much lower build targets and a much lower minimum SDK. Cool, so we've got our new project. Go ahead and expand it out. We get the same stuff we always get. We get a tic-tac-toe.java file. We go ahead and we get our values, strings. You can see that for the drawables, instead of having one, this has been around for a while, it gives you a high density pixel, low, and then also a medium. And so you can see there's icons that are slightly different file sizes. And then we've got our main.xml. Should be able to run it right now. So if you run it, I've got an emulator for 2.3 up already. So you know it should launch. Should do the typical thing of showing the title bar, showing a little hello world message. Looks like the title bar changed a little in this version, but things are still pretty much the same. And then I'll go ahead and just for giggles, I'll drag it out of here, and I'll pop it up on my main window. Not that I really needed to. Let's go ahead and copy those files over just so I don't forget to do it later. So we can go ahead and copy over the icon file. I'm just going to drag it into the medium area. Copy it over. Oh, it looks like I give it the same name, so do I want to override? Sure, why not? Not sure. I think it should be using medium, so that probably will override it. I'll check here in a second. And then the tic-tac-toe game, I'm just going to drop right into, oops, doesn't want to let me drop it. Hello, computer. Interesting. My guess is that it has a slightly different package name, and it doesn't want to let me drop it, perhaps. So let's see what we can do here. And didn't like me dragging and dropping it, but if I just hit Control-C, Control-V, that worked fine. I guess there's a couple errors in here because I haven't added all the strings yet. So maybe I shouldn't have done it so quickly. I think that's what we're going to do next, though. We're going to go through and we're going to add some strings. So some of the strings we're going to add, you can choose to copy-paste them out of the slides. Really nothing new here, just some string resources that we're trying to get in the habit of using. So you can type them or you can copy-paste them, doesn't matter to me. In class I made sure to type them so that I didn't go too fast, but since this is a video and you can pause videos, I'm going to copy-paste them. Blink. And so for tic-tac-toe, we've got the button is going to say new game. Some of the labels that it might say X's turn, O's turn, X win, O wins, or tie game. And then once I save this, my errors here should hopefully go away. Great. I'm going to go ahead and run it again, mainly just because I'm curious to see if my icon in the medium worked the way I hoped that it would. Yeah, cool. So it shows up. It just shows a little tic-tac-toe icon. Oh, they're making it kind of expand to take over the screen. Cute. Cool. So we've got this thing up. It'll run. We've got the little icon on there, which is optional, right? And we've got this model object that we'll get to in a little bit. So the main thing that we want to do to get started is we want to start creating that view. So, oops, I have this slide in here twice. So to start creating the view, we're going to open up the main.xml. This is what it should look like to start with. So by default, we've got if you open the outline, we've got a linear layout and then a text view. We showed you how to open the outline before. If you need to do it again, you can just go Show View Outline. I'm pretty disgruntled about a change they made in the outline from the last ADT tool to this one. I think it was a really bad mistake. There used to be a little plus, a little minus, a little up arrow, a little down arrow. They didn't look very good. You know, I admit to that, they didn't look great, but they were really useful. And they've replaced them with a drag and drop interface, which is great if it worked, but it doesn't work. So I'm kind of disappointed about a change here, but all right, I'll try to stop my speech there until it angers me again later. So the XML file, most people edit the code anyway, so you can always edit the code yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple simple things. We're going to go ahead and create a background color. I'll go ahead and copy this color from the slides. So we're practicing a couple things we did before. So if we want to make more resources, we can create a new XML file. Whoa. So many things change when you go from one version to another. It used to have like all kinds of options here about like Android XML and things like that. Interesting. So I can still get there from here, just not from the context menu anymore. So colors.xml. And you can see it's blank. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and add a color resource. This should be a review, so I'm doing it very quickly. I'm going to call it background. And the value I just pasted from the slides. Looks like it's mostly red, a little bit of green, slightly more blue. So that's our background color. So that's another resource that we can use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that resource be the background for this linear layout. So I'm just going to go ahead and select it here. I've got my properties window open. If you don't have your properties window open, usually you can get there by right-clicking on this, but this has changed as well. There's a neat little menu. So many things. So the properties window, I'm sure you can open it from, let's see here, I'll be good. If it was closed, how would I open it? Show view properties? No. Yeah, properties is right there. Cool. So you can always add it back. So now I've changed the look to be a red color, which is great. Next I'm going to start adding some things. The rough outline for what we're going to add. This is not real XML code, so don't copy paste it. You'll be very disappointed because it will not work. The structure we're going to go with, just so I can fit it on one slide, is we're going to have table layout kind of at the heart of this thing, and this table layout is going to have 3 rows. These rows are going to have 3 buttons apiece because it's Tic-Tac-Toe. You can see the names of these buttons. It's going to go button, and then it's going to go what row it's in. So those are all row 1, row 0, row 1, row 2, and then what column it's in. So column 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. The table layout is going to have a text view above it for the game state, and it's going to have a new game button below it. So those are all going into a linear layout. And then in order to get this linear layout centered, we're going to have a parent layout for it. Really, this parent layout could be anything. It could have been a frame layout. It could have been a relative layout. It doesn't really matter. Here, we're choosing to use a linear layout with a horizontal orientation. So that's going to be our overall strategy. Let's go in and let's start making some of these things happen. So this linear layout is great. Well, I also want to add another linear layout. Before I would have hit the little plus button, but now they've got it to where you can drag and drop it. And so you can play around with drag and drop just so you can get used to it. It's got a layouts area here. So if I take a linear layout and I drop it, you can see it gets added to the screen. The thing that I don't like about the new version is you used to be able to hit an up arrow to kind of bring it up. Now they say you can just drag and drop it to move it, which would be all well and good. Other than the drag and dropping doesn't work worth crap. So pretty disappointed. Not gonna lie to you. And then if you do something wrong, guess what? It all goes away. Yeah, well, that's what you get with with new stuff. I just lost it all. Fortunately, I can do Control Z. So pretty disappointed with the changes that they've made to the outline. Hopefully they'll get it fixed. Until they get it fixed, you're going to be stuck doing a little bit more in code when it comes to moving things around. So life goes on. So what I wanted to do here, it's pretty simple stuff, right? Is I wanted to put a text view inside a linear layout where the outer linear layout is horizontal. And then the inner one has an orientation of vertical. I guess I could still change the properties with the editor. We don't really need an ID for this, so I'm just going to go and blow that ID away. But I do want it to be wrap parent, wrap parent. That way it should center itself up nicely. So now if we look at the view we've got going on here, it's not centering just yet, so I haven't done everything right. So just to kind of figure it out, so this one I've got as horizontal, fill parent, fill parent. Oh, this one I've got as vertical. I haven't done layout gravity yet. And then I want this linear layout to be centered. So that's going to center it that direction. There are a couple different strategies you could do. I also want this to be centered in the view. There's a couple different strategies you could do. One is you could wrap its content and then you could try to center it. What I'm going to choose to do is for all the widths, I'm going to always say fill parent. Or I think it's supposed to be match parent now. I think that fill parent is deprecated and you're supposed to say match parent now. Cool, so I'm going to say match parent on that. And then for the gravity, I want to center the contents of this text view. So that's not layout gravity, that's just gravity. We talked about that last time. So I'm going to say gravity center. Cool, so far so good. Also into this linear layout, I would like to have a button. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop it over. Apparently I can drag and drop it on here. Cool. So I dragged it up to there. Now what I'd really like to do is I'd like to put it below this guy. Alright, that one I did. And then I'd like to be able to take a table layout and I'd like to put it between the two. See if I can drag and drop them around. Yeah, way to go getting rid of our plus symbols. Yeah, they weren't useful at all. Can't do it with the layout thing anymore. I guess I'll have to do it in code. Oh, so well, I'm ripping. I may as well rip good. So today's Wednesday, December the 8th. I read this today. So this was from Xavier. He's an Android tech lead guy. But he's like, yep, it's completely different underneath. And it says the plus has been replaced by drag and drop. And you know it shouldn't really be needed anymore. And then the same thing with the up and down arrows because you can drag and drop. But yeah, they don't work. So I was a little disappointed by that. All right, gonna force myself not to complain anymore. So once I've got the changes made in code, it should straighten up and fly right. So I want this text view to be inside the linear layout. So once I kind of go back here, you can see that it moved it back into the right place. And so inside this table layout, there's going to be a bunch of things. There's going to be a table row. Any chance I can put it inside? Nope. So there's going to be a table row. And it's on there, it's just not inside the table. And when I come back, you can see it pops inside. And then in this table row, there's going to be buttons. I really should give up on the drag and drop thing because it doesn't work. I just haven't gotten it to work yet. So put you in there. Nope. So let's go ahead and find that button and bring him in. So this button, I want him to be inside the table row. Great. And there's actually going to be 3 buttons in here. I'll just start doing it in code. Cool. So now we've got our table row. We've got 3 buttons in it. If we look at our overall outline, they're going to have the IDs that look like this. So I'm going to go ahead and make those IDs. So I'm just going to call this one button 00 and 01, 02. Cool. The text on these guys is going to be blank, so I'm just not going to put any text on them. And so you can see that they all kind of squish to the sides. That's expected for what I've got so far. If you want them to not squish to the sides, you can set a property on the table that says to stretch columns. So under stretch columns, I'm going to put a star, and you can see that it stretches them to fill the entire width. I don't want them to go all the way to the side, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little padding on there. So on the padding left, I don't know, we'll throw on a pretty good padding. Let's say 40 DPs on the left and 40 DPs on the right. So hopefully that'll kind of arrange our buttons a little better. Cool, so let's go ahead and make 2 more rows. So there's table row number 1, then here comes row 2, there comes row 3. They're very similar except for, oops, let me take the ID off the table row. We didn't really need it anyway. I took it off the table layout there. We don't need to reference it in code, so I'll just kill it. So these next 2 are very similar. The only thing that's different is their IDs are going to be for row 1, column 0, 1, and 2, and then row 2, column 0, 1, and 2. Save it up, go over to the graphical layout. You can see we're starting to get a little tic-tac-toe look and feel here. Go ahead and fix up some other things. And so the text is going to display the game state. We're going to need to reference it in code. So I'm going to go ahead and give it an ID. I'm just going to call mine game state. To make it look a little better, I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bigger. So my text size, I don't know, let's make it 24 SP. So scalable density and independent pixels. And it looks like it's almost too big, but really that message is big. The message is going to be something more like, I'm going to go ahead and set it to x's turn, so I set it to the string resource x's turn. And so you can see that it's a fine size. And then it looks like it needs a little bottom margin, maybe, I don't know, 10 dps. Cool, so it's starting to look better. We've got a reference to it. We've got a reference to all these buttons. Let's fix up the new game button next. So the new game button, what we want to do with it is we want to move it over to the far right side. So let's see here. Let's set its layout gravity to right. Now that's going to move it all the way to the right. I suppose what I should have done is instead of putting the padding on the table, I should have just put it on the on the outermost right there. So the outermost linear layout. So I'm just going to go ahead and pad it to right and left, and then that way it'll kind of stay with the buttons. The ID that we're going to use for this to reference it later is just new game. You can make it whatever you like. And the text on it is going to use that string resource for new game. Then if you'd like, you can go ahead and give it a little top margin. We'll move it down a few DPs as well. Looks like we've got ourselves a little tic-tac-toe game. So really the best way to learn this stuff is to kind of sit down and play with it. You could try to follow along with what I did in the video. That's not necessarily required. You don't have to do everything exactly how I did it. I think that this structure works pretty well. The top one could have been about whatever. A linear layout here makes sense. You could have, if you wanted, put this text view and this button into the table, but that was unnecessary. So there's just a linear layout and then a table inside of it. If you'd like to follow along with the code in the slides here, which are a good reference, you can see here's exactly what I did for the two linear layouts. And how I arrange things. Looks like I just padded it all the way around in the slide version. For the text view, this is what I did there. The table layout, here's what I did there, and this is the table rows. And then for the table rows, the buttons that went into them, they look like this. Then for the new game, it has a gravity right and the string new game. So hopefully once you've got all those things together, you should have yourself a good looking layout. And it should look something like this. So let's go ahead and check to make sure it does what we think it does. Let's go ahead and run this guy. The graphical layout tab for simple stuff works pretty much spot on, but it's usually good to run it in the emulator just so you know what's going on. So you can click things, but they don't do anything yet. One thing that's neat about Android that you get for free is you can navigate the view and select things and click on them with the D center. So I think that's pretty cool. If you were to rotate it, the view that we've chosen looks okay rotated. It doesn't necessarily look great. I'm not worried about it. If you did something, I think if you followed the slides, new game gets cut off a little bit. But I'm really not worried about it. We're not focused on every device, every orientation. We're just trying to get our feet wet getting started. Ooh, it chose not to rotate that time. That's interesting. Oh well, maybe it'll fix itself up here in a second. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the next phase, which is trying to give it some functionality. So model view controller, model was given, view is kind of done now. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make that controller that links the two. So the controller is going to all be done in the tic-tac-toe.java file. So let's go ahead and open it up and look around. So some of the tasks that we've got to do. We're in tic-tac-toe, we're in onCreate. We've just added the view. Some of the things that we want to do is we want to get a reference to all the buttons. And then we're going to want to add an on-click listener to all the buttons. And then at some point we're going to need to get a reference to the game state text view. And then we're also going to need to add an on-click listener to the new game button. Cool, so let's go through and let's make some of those things happen. So to get a reference to all the buttons, what we're going to do is we want to store a member variable to the buttons. The easiest way to do it is probably just to create a 2D array of, I don't know, game buttons. You can call it whatever you like, right? So I'll call mine M game buttons, or you could also call it tic-tac-toe buttons, or I don't know, you could probably get away with calling it just buttons in this app. It's a small app, so you can get away with calling it about whatever you want. I'll use buttons. All right, so we've got an array here, and now we want to make a reference to them. In class, the step that some people didn't get right is first you've got to make the array before you can put stuff into the array. To make the array, what you can do is you can just say new buttons. We know it's going to be a 3 by 3. Just to be a slightly better programmer, oops, button. Instead of just hard coding in 3 and 3, there's actually a public static final called num_rows and one called num_columns. And let's go ahead and use those. We'll be good. So inside Tic-Tac-Toe game, we use num_rows. And then here we'll say Tic-Tac-Toe game dot num_columns. Great. So that was phase 1, is creating our array. The next phase is a little bit of a brute force. Don't know a slick way to do this, but brute force won't take us long. We're just going to go through and we're going to find each view by its ID. So button 0, 0, and we're just going to add it to array location 0, 0. There's probably some slick way to do it, but this right here is, I mean, what it is, it's not a string. It's just the name of a, just the name of a public static final int. And I'm sure there's some clever way to do the token concatenation with like the preprocessor, but I'm not worried about it. So we're just going to brute force. We're just going to knock out the 3 in this row. So that's button 0, 1 and 0, 2. And then the middle row and then the bottom row. So row 1 and row 2. You can hear the noise in the background. That's my 7-month-old daughter playing with her toy in her crib. Cool, so we've got a reference to all the buttons, which is great. Once we've got a reference to them, and we've got them in this nice friendly array, we'll be smart from here on. So if we want to add an on-click listener to all of them, we can use a rather standard looking nested arrays. So while row is less than Tic-Tac-Toe game dot num_rows, row plus plus. So we're going to make a for loop that goes through all the rows, and then a for loop that goes through all the columns. Cool, and we'll use this in a couple places. This is just a really easy way to go through everything. So we'll say button row call. What we want to do for each button is we want to set an on-click listener. So we're going to say set on-click listener. So mine's taking a second to load up again. I suppose I should just turn off the autocomplete. By the way, if yours hangs up there like mine did that time, had a student in class, Stoke, showed me how to just turn that off. If you want to turn that preference off, you can go to Eclipse Preferences. It's under Java, Editor, Content Assistant, and so you can, the auto activation for the enable auto activation, if you just turn that off, it won't try to prompt you anymore. You'll have to hit Control Space to bring it up, but it won't have that delay, so I'll turn it off. So I set the on-click listener to this. You can see that this class does not implement on-click listener yet. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to use Eclipse to help me. If you hover over the problem, one of the solutions is let Tic-Tac-Toe implement it. So I'm going to say, hey, sure, let it implement it. Eclipse says, hey, I've got another problem. The new problem is that it doesn't have the required methods. So I'm going to say add unimplemented methods. And I use Eclipse all the time to do my typing for me. So you can see now it's made the onClick method, and it implements onClick listener. So we'll write that area here in a little bit, but you can see that now they all have the onClick listener. Next thing we want to do is we're going to want to reference to the text view. So we're going to go ahead and make a member variable for it as well. So text view, I'm going to call it mGameState. Sometimes I also say what it is, so GameState text view. It has no idea what text view is, so I'm going to do a Command-Shift-O or Control-Shift-O for the Windows users out there. Cool, and so at that point I've added it. Here, now I've got to go capture that reference. So you can see it didn't try to autocomplete until I hit Control Space. And it is equal to the text view, find view by ID, r.id dot GameState. So now we've captured that. Find view by ID is slower than accessing the member property and having it there. So it's recommended that you kind of grab these things off during onCreate and then you just have them. It's even faster to use local variables, but we'll go ahead and capture this off here. Final thing we want to do is we want to add an onClick listener to the new game button. We don't really need a reference to it. We just want to add that click listener because we're never going to change the text on it. It's just going to sit there. So one thing you can do is you can just do the whole thing in one line, right? So you can say find view by ID, new game, typecast it to a button, and then right here you can set the onClick listener to this. So if you don't need a reference to it, you just want to set the listener. Here's a style where you can kind of just do it in one line real quick. So you find it, typecast it, set its listener. Bing, bang, done. So at this point you could choose to run it, but you wouldn't notice anything happening, right? So we've got references to things, we're setting the listener, but the only thing that you would see is if you wanted to, wait, we could do this. Let's just add a quick log message. The way a log message works is you give it two strings. One is the tag. What I've been doing for tags is I've just been making a string with the initials of the project. So here it's Tic-Tac-Toe. So what I would do here is I would say private, static, I guess it could be public as well, final string, TTT, and I just make it also be the string TTT. The only reason I do this is it helps avoid typos and things like that. Because if you were typing the string and you typed 4 T's, you know, it would not throw any errors. But if I was typing, you know, TTT and I put in an extra T, that it would warn me about. So on click. So you can see it doesn't like that so much. I'm going to import the log, Control-Shift-O, with the Android util log. I've still got to fix this typo to TTT. Cool. So if we run it now, every button should print this message on click. So I'm going to go ahead and run it. While it's booting up, I'm going to open up my cat log. Sorry, log cat. You can see that it gets pretty full. So we're going to create a filter. We did this last time as well. To create a new filter, you can click on the little green plus arrow. This makes me miss my plus arrow in the outline. Grr. I'm going to add a TTT filter. And now when I click on buttons, it should say on click. So it should say on click for everybody. So you can make sure that they're actually on clicking. Even new game. Cool. So it's doing something. Not anything useful, but something. Let's make it do something slightly more useful. Catch up the slides here. So the information is here on the slides. Hopefully it's the same information. So you can see we got the buttons, we added the on-click listener, we added a listener to the new game, had a different ID in the slides, but that's fine. We implemented on-click. And then so the next thing we want to do is we're going to start writing that on-click area. And one of the things that we're going to need is we're going to need a game object that is that model backing. So we're going to need to create an instance of Tic-Tac-Toe game. So Tic-Tac-Toe game. I'm just going to call it game, or I'll call it M game. The style is to always put M in front of your member variables. I'll try to do it, no promises. So at some point we're going to have to create a new game. What better place than on create? So new Tic-Tac-Toe game. The way Tic-Tac-Toe game works is you pass it a context. The reason for this is the context lets it access the resources, and so we're just going to pass in this. So it's not an activity, so I'm going to pass in the context. An activity is a subclass of a context, so by passing in this it gets the context. That's how it can access those strings. Cool, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start implementing on-click. I'm going to comment out my little log message. The first thing that we need to know in on-click is we need to know which button was pressed. There are actually a couple ways that we could have done this. We could have added tags in here, which is one thing we could have done. But what I'm going to show you is just kind of the most generic approach. And the most generic approach is to simply say view, get your ID, and then we're going to have cases for the different IDs. So we've got a new game. I'll tell you what, let's just stick a little log message in here for each of them. So this was new game. And, we'll eventually do something in there. The case might be button 0, in which case, you'd give a little log message that would say like button row 0, column 0. And then the busy work is, doing it many times. So column 1 and 2 of row 0. And then once I've got one row done, the other two rows are that much easier. So I've got row 1, row 2. Doing this kind of fast, but I think you get the idea. If you want to keep up doing it yourself, you can just pause it and you can get caught up doing it yourself. So the easiest way to figure out what button was pressed is to look at the ID of the button. And so we'll print out an independent log depending on who was pressed. So if I run it again, my window's situated. So now when I press on this button, it should say that I pressed row 0, column 0, row 0, 1. Apparently I double clicked there. Dink, 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 dink. Looks like things are going good. And then new game seems to work as well. Cool. So things are going good. We know which button was pressed, which is a big deal. And now we're going to need to take certain actions depending on which button was pressed. The actions that we're going to take are we're going to call methods on our mGame object, our mGame instance. To figure out what methods we need to call, let's take a look at the Tic-Tac-Toe game public methods. You could do this in the code if you liked. I mean, all the information is here. You can just figure out which one's public. You could also create a little Java doc for it if you really wanted. I don't think I did a very good job of documenting it. But it's pretty simple, so let's just talk about it here in the slides. When somebody presses a button, you need to inform the model object of that button press. So you would call pressed button at location, pass it in the row and the column. The other thing you need to do is you need to also update from the model, like update the view. So you need to know the string for a button at a location. You also need to know the string for the game state. Then when somebody presses new game, you have two options. You could just create a new instance if you wanted, or I made this little reset game, which resets the existing instance. Really doesn't matter. The only reason I made reset game is because I first made this for an iPhone app, and their memory management's kind of a pain, so I didn't want to blow away the object, so I just fixed the existing object. So we're going to call those things depending on what button is pressed. So for new game, we're going to say this.mgame.reset game. And like I say, you could have also done this. You could have said it's a new tic-tac-toe game. Don't do both. Well, I wish you could. So these would basically do the same thing. I'm just going to reset the game since I've got the method. And then when somebody presses a button, you're going to say press button at location, and then you're just going to type in what the location was. So again, a little tedious, but it's not too bad. 9, we can still brute force 9. Again, if you chose a more advanced option like a tag, you could do a slightly more elegant solution. And we'll do elegant someday, but not today. So row 2, column 1, and last but not least, row 2, column 2. Cool, so every button has a different impact on the game. You might reset it, or you might press a button at a location. Now again, this is all well and good. We're telling our model object to do something, but you can't see it yet, right? So there's still, you can't see it happening. So the big thing that we're going to do is we're going to start updating that view. Just to kind of real quickly, I'm on slide 28. So we've kind of, we're updating the model, and we're getting the user action, we're updating the model, but we're not fulfilling this last path. We're not updating the view, and that's what you can see. So that one's important. So let's see here. So we've already done this test. We've already done the log messages. This is the last part where we're going to update the view. To update the view, we're going to have to update every button. What I'm going to choose to do is I'm going to copy that nested for loop that we had before, and I'm going to stick it down below. But obviously, instead of, I don't want to set the on-click listener, I want to set the text. And the thing I want to set the text to is I want to set it to whatever the game tells me to set it to. So I want string for button at location row call. So I want to set the text of each button to whatever the game tells me to set it to. And then I want to set the game state text views text to whatever the game tells me to set that to. So you can see where these model objects are nice, right? So I ask it what I should set it to, and then I make it happen. Cool. So if we run it now, this last step of updating the view will make a tremendous impact on our app. And so now it says it's X turn. If I click here, it will actually update all of the images, and it will update to say O's turn. If I click for O, then I click for X, you can see there's still a few things that aren't quite perfect. There's a little bit of movement as it's going, and that's fine for what we're doing. We'll go with O's turn. Oh, tragic mistake. Looks like X will go there, and X is 1. Other little things that the model object does. If you click on things now, it doesn't do anything. That's just the model object. It just ignores those things. If you say new game, it'll start a new game. If you click on an existing button, it won't do anything. So the model object is taking care of that. If you manage to play a game and nobody wins, it'll say tie game. And this is our little this is our first little app. Portrait doesn't look great, but looks good enough. Oh, you fell for it again, oh. Cool. So hopefully got you a few useful skills here to make a little tic-tac-toe app. The skills that we hopefully got is we got you some practice with buttons, some practice with making a tic-tac-toe game. The next thing that we're going to do, that we did in class at least, is gave you some time to work on your own with just a little bit less direct supervision. To work a little bit on your own, we've got labs. The lab that you should work on next, the one that you're ready for, is the linear lights out game. We're actually going to revisit this one later. But let's go ahead and look at lab 1 just so you can kind of see what's going on. So what's going on with lab 1 is there are 2 parts. Part A is to work a tutorial from Google. I really like this tutorial. Looks like it's redirecting, that's fine. This tutorial is called Form Stuff. It gets you used to a couple different widgets, so buttons, entry boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, on-off switches, and ratings bar. So this is a really fun example, and I really like it. So it's the first one that I assigned in a lab. So we're going to have you do that, and then you're going to create the linear lights out game. Lights out is a game that typically is two-dimensional. The idea of lights out is if you press a button, it changes the state of that button. You know, like if it was off, it turns it on. If it's on, it turns it off. And it also changes all its neighbors. What we're going to do is we're going to make a linear version. So there's going to be exactly 7 buttons in our version. So you're going to have to make a 7-button layout. There's going to be text above it, which is similar to what we did with Tic-Tac-Toe. The text is going to change. When you're playing, it's going to say make the buttons match. And then when you win, it's going to say you win. So just kind of to say again how this works is, didn't like that. If you were to click on a button, let's say you were to click on this middle button here, the one you clicked on would change to a 1, and the one on each side would also change to a 1. So then it'd say 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And then from there, like if you clicked on this one, it would make it 0, and then that one, and then they'd all be 0 and they'd match. Here you can see if they all match, either all zeros or all ones, doesn't matter. It'll say you win. So it's a pretty simple little game. Just like we did in the last example, we're going to go ahead and give you the backing class. It's just called Lights Out Game, so you can just download it. That's fine. If you go look at what's in there, you can see that there are a lot of pretty simple methods. Posted the Java doc for it, unnecessary. Check for win, get number of presses. There are a few little things you can do. The main ones you really need are to tell it you pressed a button at an index, and then to get the value for that index. You are not required to use my backing model. Feel free to make your own. I think it'd be great if you wanted to make your own, but you can use mine, and that'd be just fine. I want you to focus on the Android skills that we're learning, so I just gave you the backing model object. I'm certain that you can make it. The view that you lay out should look good enough in portrait and landscape, so we won't even really worry about that. Some of the things that are required, I do want you to change the background color just to prove that you can do that, and so make sure you change the background to something different. But this will be a good practice for you. I'm not going to go over it in the video, but it'd be a good thing for you to just kind of test and make sure you understand this. You're allowed to look back at your code from Tic-Tac-Toe. But feel free to try to do it looking back as little as you have to. Cool. So that's all we got for today. Appreciate your time and patience learning a little bit of Android fun. I'll see you guys next time.